Races in Colorado's congressional districts are already heating up. State Senator Andy Kerr and State Representative Brittany Pettersen both announced their campaigns for the Democratic nomination to replace U.S. Representative Ed Perlmutter in CD7. Democratic Attorney Jason Crow announced that he'll run in CD6 in an attempt to defeat Republican incumbent Mike Kaufman, and Owen Hill has announced he will run as a primary opponent to Republican Doug Lamborn in CD5. David, we had a lot of developments this week. Which to you was the biggest deal?
Owen Hill challenging Doug Lamborn. That seat was previously held for about 2 decades by Joel Heffley, who, as far as I can remember, never had any primary challenges and actually never had any serious general election challenges. Lamborn has not had any close general elections, but he's had a number of primaries already, and the votes that those challengers got, one was a former staffer, suggests that there's some discontent there. Now that you have Owen Hill, who is a A-level candidate, very strong, I think it's possible Lamborn might be defeated in the primary. In Mike Kaufman's district, I don't think the Democrats will draw a top-tier candidate after they ran Andrew Romanoff and Morgan Carroll, both highest quality candidates, and neither of them actually ended up coming close. I think there may be some feeling of discouragement for the highest quality candidates who want to get in, but that gives the more unknown people a chance to run, and as the lottery says, you can't win if you don't play. And the chance to beat Kaufman in 2018 is, there's really one, but there is an anti-Trump backlash that just sinks a lot of otherwise viable Republicans, as what happened with Democrats in '94 and 2010 with Obama, and what happened with Republicans with 2006 in Bush. So if that happens, then whoever's the lucky guy who gets the Democratic nomination could win.
Pam, let's stay in CD6. We have Jason Crow, who's formally announced, and we have Rhonda Fields, State Senator Rhonda Fields, who is considering. She's held some town hall meetings, so it's more of a rumor state. But if you're the Democratic committee looking to really put the money behind really what should be the last big hurrah for Democrats to take on Kaufman, if they can't beat him in a midterm year with Trump as president, after, again, losing, as David said, with Andrew Romanoff and Morgan Carroll, it's going to be hard to put up something more. Where do you think that committee goes? A young veteran, fellow veteran like Jason Crow, or a seasoned local politician like Rhonda Fields, who has made a name for herself in other issues?
I think the party needs to basically give both of them room to see who becomes the more viable challenger. When you look at this, what's interesting about Mike Kaufman is the fact that, number one, during the election, he distanced himself from Trump early on. His own early TV commercials talked about the fact that he couldn't and would not support Trump. So he's sort of taken these preemptive strikes early on. The town hall meeting, he got beat up over his support for the legislation to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and his constituents gave him an earful. He ends up by saying Sean Spicer's got to go. So he's beginning to prepare himself for a challenge. Jason Crow and Rhonda Fields are two very different candidates, but they also reflect sort of where the demographic is moving. 6 and 7 are probably the two most legitimately contestable seats in the congressional delegation in the state, where the mix of RD and unaffiliated is about a third. Kaufman knows that. I mean, the last campaign, you saw him surround himself with people from the immigrant community because he understood 6 is becoming more ethnically and racially diverse, which creates a seam for Rhonda Fields to be a viable challenger to him. So I think if you're the party, you let Jason and Rhonda get out there, work it up in a primary, and see where the momentum heads before you start trying to push one candidate over the other.
Eric, let's go back to CD7. Who has the edge, Andy Kerr or Brittany Pettersen?
That's
coin flip?
I think they both bring a lot to the table. Andy Kerr has Brittany Pettersen has, she has a very compelling personal story, and she's shared a lot of that story in the legislature with the work that she's done around opiate addiction and trying to get some more work there. So I think she can be very appealing. Andy Kerr's experience, I think it could go either way.
It should be strong for either one of them. And right now, we haven't seen a lot of big-name Republicans in that race either, so they're going to get a lot of support once someone comes out of the primary.
Yeah, I think that's another place where there's an opportunity. Perlmutter's been very difficult to beat in that seat, and now it's an open seat, and we'll see what happens.
Definitely. Patty, let's wrap it up. You have CD5 making news, CD6, CD7. Who knows about next week, but take your pick from the big three.
Well, the Owen Hill news is really big because wouldn't we love to see a new face down there who actually might still be conservative but also be very responsive and a little more on the planet than we've seen some of the things recently. You wonder what would happen if Diana DeGette decided she was going to leave, because you can just see, as everyone is so thrilled that Perlmutter's leaving, and clearly these guys have been ready to campaign for a while, how many people in Denver would be lining up for an open seat like that. I think, especially in Perlmutter's seat, it's fairly open. It's open to people. A good campaigner with a good campaign is going to make the difference. Obviously, raising money is going to help, but I don't think either starts out with a lead.